Welcome to Why Should I Invest? Developed by the International Collegiate Angels Network, or ICAN. At ICAN, we believe that campus-born ventures are today's most underappreciated asset class. Each podcast will spotlight a campus-born founder and the venture they're building. I'm going to ask the tough questions that investors would want to ask. I'm talking to Dr. Jessica Reed today from a company. I'm going to mispronounce the name, I'm sure. It reads Diapin, but it could be Diapin.
Diapin.
And you are doing therapeutics, developing best-in-class medicines for cardiovascular and metabolic diseases. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Diapin, please.
Yeah, so I'm Jessica Reed, originally from the UK. I have a PhD in chemistry from the University of Leeds. Came over to do my postdoc at the University of Rochester in New York State, and then joined Park Davis, which became Pfizer. Pfizer then decided to close the Ann Arbor facility. So I transitioned into clinical research, working at a number of smaller companies, CROs, and a couple of biotechs before joining Diapin Therapeutics. Diapin Therapeutics is a spin-out from the University of Michigan. It was started in the labs of Paul Hollenberg, who discovered the molecule DT678, which is designed to be a better antiplatelet agent. There's a well-known drug called Plavix or clopidogrel, which was a very widely used and very great drug, which significantly reduced the risk of further heart attacks and stroke. But unfortunately, it doesn't work well for everybody. It's metabolized into a number of different metabolites, some of which are active, and the most active metabolite is the one that inhibits platelets and stops them from clotting together. So you can imagine if you have a blockage or you have you're likely to form a clot, which could then damage the heart. Having an antiplatelet agent on board will help prevent that from happening, and it also helps clots that can then lead to buildups that would then lead to strokes, etc. So clopidogrel works very well, but in some patients who don't have the right CYP2C19 isoform, which helps metabolize it to the active metabolite, the FDA have noticed that it doesn't work well for these patients. They put a black box warning on the label for clopidogrel. And so Haoming Zhang and Paul Hollenberg worked at the University of Michigan to come up with a faster way to get to the active metabolite. And they were successful. And this drug has been developed for the treatment of acute coronary syndrome, prevention of heart attack and stroke.
Yeah, so Dr. Hollenberg, is he still involved in the project? Is he part of Diapin?
He has retired. He is still somebody that we reach out to. The founder of the company is a doctor of cardiovascular medicine at the University of Michigan called Dr. Eugene Chen. And yes. Haoming, the chemist involved, they're both still heavily involved in the company. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dr. Chen, how long has he been at the University of Michigan now?
Oh, I think about 30 years.
Oh, 30 years. Okay, 30 years. Great. And and the reason I asked that question is I do see that you've received some funding from a company in Beijing, a pharmaceutical company, I believe, developer of drugs and things.
Yes. So Beijing SL are a strategic partner. They in-licensed Diapin's two assets. DT678, which is the antiplatelet, and we also have DT109, which is for metabolic diseases. They in-licensed them, and they have rights to them in China. We've been collaborating with them, and that was in, I think, 2012 that they first started working together.
Okay.
And so they have invested in Diapin and also invested in those two assets.
I see.
A wonderful partner.
Great. And Diapin was formed July of 2020. So you've been at it about 5 years. Is that correct?
No, it was actually formed in 2011, July
2011.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And right now you're looking for pretty substantial funding. It looks like $5 million to $7.5 million.
Yes. So we have completed the IND in China. and started studies in China. So we've completed the phase one, single adjusted dose, multiple adjusted dose, food effect, and drug-drug interaction studies in China. And they've all gone very well with
Hmm.
a very favorable safety profile. We submitted our IND and have had
And
interactions
the
with the
IND,
FDA.
you may want to break that out. Investigational new drug.
Yeah, so we
Yes.
submitted our application to start human clinical trials in the US.
Okay.
And we've had discussions with the FDA about what that study would look like.
Hmm.
And so the majority of the funds that we're raising are to support that study in the US.
Right.
It will cost about 3.5 million to do that study. And then it will cost about another million to submit our new drug application with that data to the FDA for them to consider for approval. And then we have some other non-clinical studies we need to do, and some consulting fees because we're a small company. We need additional help with certain areas like pharmacodynamic modeling, etc.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what the 7.5 million that we're looking to raise. That's what that is for.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand the roadmap. I guess you have done pretty well with your approvals in China, and you've recently had some meetings with the FDA. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, we had a pre-IND meeting, and we've also submitted our FDA, our investigational new drug application to the FDA, and they've responded back to us. They've given us a clear pathway forward, which is through the 505(b)(2) application, because the active metabolite that our drug generates is the same active metabolite as clopidogrel, and that's the metabolite which inhibits platelet inhibition. So
Yes.
they've allowed us to use the 505(b)(2) accelerated pathway because of the similarity. And so we've submitted safety data, and we also intend to rely on the efficacy data from that active metabolite from clopidogrel. And they've agreed that we don't need to do additional efficacy studies, but we do need to show that our drug is equivalent to clopidogrel. And those are the studies that we're looking to fund.
And you say that you're ready to begin if you have funding by the third quarter of 2025. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. We're ready. We have the proposals. We're just looking for the money.
Okay, and then late 2026, you say you plan to submit the 505(b)(2) NDA in late 2026, and hopefully, with approval in late 2027, you get around to product launch. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, we'd have, after we submit the NDA, we'd be preparing for that launch. And we already have, manufacturing capabilities. We've submitted all of that data to the FDA. And so, yeah, that from that point onward, we would hope to be revenue generating. As
Yes.
the sales increase, we would, pay off some of our costs and then
Yeah.
generate revenue.
Yeah. And so it's about a 2-year cycle from beginning this phase one study until product launch, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, how confident are you in that life cycle? I mean, FDA can be really difficult to work with sometimes. I mean, are things working out? I mean, are things going fairly smooth with respect to that nowadays?
Yes, I think that they are able to meet the PDUFA timelines.
Uh,
And, there is a clear regulatory framework for this particular
okay.
type of development. Um, so yeah, I'm optimistic.
Okay.
So
You've
we'll
got good
probably
experience in the area, right? I mean, tell us a little bit. I mean, you've developed quite a number of drugs over your lifetime, haven't you?
Yes, I was fortunate enough to work with a wonderful group at Park Davis that
Uh-huh.
have developed a number of anti-cancer drugs, and I worked on a drug called Visimpro, which is an EGFR inhibitor approved for the treatment of certain mutations in lung cancer and also some head and neck cancers. And then when I was working at a company in MMS, at a company in Michigan called MMS Holdings, I worked on a number of NDA submissions,
Okay.
around seven. And I've also worked on over 10 IND submissions to date.
Okay.
So I have, quite a lot of experience in what the FDA are looking for. And what kind of questions
Yeah.
they ask and how to address those questions.
Awesome. Great experience. Tell us a little bit about the market for this particular product. As you mentioned, there's a very effective drug in the field already. So basically, what your product is going to do is improve the performance, or does it have an alternative group of people that it works with that is different than the current products in the marketplace?
Well, I think the best thing to talk about is the problem with clopidogrel, which we're trying to solve, which is that um, if you have a particular mutation or variant of the
Uh-huh.
CYP2C19 isoform, the drug doesn't work as well for you. And there's a lot of literature that shows that. So for those patients who are either poor metabolizers or intermediate metabolizers who have different variants of CYP2C19, they're often given clopidogrel and it doesn't work well for them. And there's also a risk of bleeding. Obviously, that the benefits outweigh the risks, but if you're a patient and you're having a lot of nosebleeds, or you have GI bleeds, or in some cases, it's quite rare that you would have a intracranial bleed, that would then be, very detrimental.
Serious. Yes.
Yeah, so there are a lot of adverse events for people who clopidogrel doesn't work for. There are some other drugs that have been approved, but they also have side effects. One of them is a drug called ticagrelor, which causes dyspnea, breathlessness. It's also twice a day, and it also has an increased risk of bleeding. So, um, our drug will work for everybody, regardless of their
Uh,
CYP2C19
I see.
isoform.
Okay.
And it also has a lower risk of bleeding because it doesn't generate one of the metabolites which has been shown to cause bleeding. So what we would hope is that if patients are not doing well on clopidogrel, that they would be transferred to our drug. And over time, we hope that we can show in head-to-head studies that it is actually better than clopidogrel, and then perhaps get first-line
Okay.
treatment.
Very,
But
very interesting. It's
the
very
the market.
interesting. So you're estimating a $7 billion opportunity at 10% market share.
Yeah, the total addressable market for cardiovascular is huge. It's, between 150 billion, and it's expected to increase to 200 billion in 2034.
The baby boomers were getting old, right?
You're not the only ones getting old.
Yeah.
But the SAM is slightly less than that. Obviously, that's the share for antiplatelets. That's
Uh-huh.
around 4 to 6 billion. So if we were to, if we get between 10% and 50%, it's a huge market, which is,
Hmm.
7.5. Um, we expect that we would also be able to gain share from the increased number of surgeries and cardiovascular
Got it.
stenting. So clopidogrel and our drug also stop thrombi forming in around stents, which allows patients to live
Sure.
longer.
Sure.
So
Sure.
yeah, we can see this really, the
Yeah.
utilization really being significant
Wow.
in such a
Yeah, a
large
lot of
market.
applications, a lot of good indications there. So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned in here that the exit strategy is maybe a competitor buyout or some type of a buyout. And you mentioned also that you're in some conversations with strategic partners and potential buyers and so on. How are those conversations shaping up?
They're good. They're very interested. Obviously, they also recognize that this is a huge market, and some of them have drugs already and a marketing sales force in this area. So I think that, a lot of companies are in the cardiovascular space, and so they see this as fitting well into their portfolio. And so they're looking for us to, one of the companies we've spoken to is interested in us developing an IV formulation.
Uh-huh.
So that's something that we're also working on.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, we see that there are interested parties. They're obviously at this time cautious because of the economic situation. But we're optimistic that we'll either have a strategic partner
Hmm.
or that will be bought at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Or if not, we can, become profitable and
Yeah.
invest that money back in other assets.
Yes, I fully understand. So I'm not an expert in this field, clearly not, and so if I've missed anything, or is there, I mean, anything that you would like to kind of add, maybe in terms of your differentiation, your competitive advantages, or maybe a little bit more about your team that would help us investors understand better the Diapin opportunity?
Well, I think the best way to think about the differentiation for DT678 is that it's metabolized very quickly and efficiently. It takes about 6 hours for clopidogrel to be metabolized to its active metabolite. And again, that doesn't happen in every patient. So our drug works well for everybody. We hope that it would also have less of a bleeding risk, which is, it can be very distressing if you have a nosebleed that doesn't stop, or you have bleeding from the gums, or you have
Oh,
bleeding
I
from
can imagine.
internal organs. So we have tested it in our phase 1 studies, and it did effectively lower platelet aggregation, and it had a very favorable PK, pharmacokinetic, and pharmacodynamic, and also safety profile. So to tell you a little bit more about our team, again, Eugene Chen is a professor of cardiovascular medicine at the University of Michigan. We also have a very successful CEO in Charlie Biscayne, who has had multiple successful exits. He was also one of the co-founders of Diapin Therapeutics. We also have a very strong advisory team, and we have a world-renowned antiplatelet expert, Dr. Mehta, from McGill University, Shamir Mehta. So yeah, we have a very strong team. We also
Wow.
have
Yeah.
people from the University of Michigan guiding our development. Um, so yeah, I think that this could really benefit millions of patients. The other thing about CYP2C19 isoforms is that about 1 in 4 patients in the Western world have this mutation. So a quarter of the people, it doesn't work well for them. And then if you go to Asia, it's about 60% of people.
Wow.
And that's why our partner, Beijing SL, were particularly interested, because they're looking at something that will work better than the drug, which is used in 90% of cases. So yeah, I think we have a very strong product, and we'll be able to differentiate it from clopidogrel very easily because of the faster onset, and also it does work for everybody. You don't have to worry about the isoform testing and whether it's working well for your particular patient. So
Right. Right.
I don't know what my CYP2C19, what variants I have. Most people don't. And the
No.
last thing you want to find out is, in the hospital where the drug that is not working for you, and you have another
Yeah.
heart attack. You'd
Is
rather have
it-
something that will work well for everybody.
Sure,
So,
absolutely. It's a very critical time, and so you're currently raising $5 million to $7.5 million, and are you having any success? Are you out in raising capital in the Ann Arbor area, or in?
so I'll be going to the BioCentury Grand Rounds in Chicago this week.
Okay.
And then we're also, raising mostly through email outreach, actually, because that's the most
Yeah.
cost effective. Yeah, we do have some traction. But obviously we're hoping to get our study funded and move forward as quickly as possible. So
Okay. Exciting time. Congratulations on the success of this product so far. I mean, it sounds like things are very, very promising. It sounds like a wonderful therapeutic for people that suffer strokes and heart attacks, and obviously there's a great team that you've put together to steward this through the FDA and to get this product to the marketplace. It sounds like you've got all the pieces except for the funding. Is that correct?
yes, it's
Yeah,
not an easy time for funding. There's a lot of uncertainty,
I can
and
understand.
so yes, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
that this drug is definitely going to be successful. It's definitely going to be launched in China, as well, and we will also get revenue from our partnership in China. And I think it will benefit, given that 60% of people in Asia and also slightly higher in Pacific Island nations, that those patients will really benefit from this drug and have improved antiplatelet therapy. And hopefully that will lead to a reduction in heart attacks and strokes for those patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people want to get a little bit more information about Diapin, do you have any contact information for us?
I think the best person to contact is myself, jreed at diapin.com. We also have a website, which is just www.diapin.com, diapin.com.
Right.
So hopefully people can reach out and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right. And there will be information about Diapin on the ICAN website as well. We're going to have a link to this podcast on our website so people can come and get information about Diapin by coming to the ICAN, icanhub.net. So today we're talking to Dr. Jessica Reed from Diapin. Dr. Reed, thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
For more information about how you can get involved in the ICAN mission, please contact me directly via email at tomdenning@icanhub.net.